I was 17 when I won the National Math Olympiad, first place, a title that took years of late nights and relentless study to achieve. I came home beaming, clutching that diploma like it was my ticket to finally being seen. But my parents, they ripped it in half and told me to mop the floor. My sister laughed like it was the best joke she'd heard all week. That was the day I learned some families don't celebrate your success, they fear it. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. And I begin my story. The air felt heavier than usual that day, like the walls themselves were bracing for something. I stood in the doorway of our cramped kitchen in Austin, Texas, holding the Math Olympiad diploma like it was some sacred relic. My fingers trembled, not from fear, but from a strange cocktail of pride and dread. Had rehearsed their reaction in my head, Mom's proud tears, Dad clapping me on the back, Katie asking how I managed to beat all those other kids. What I got instead was silence. My mother, Evelyn, barely looked up from her pile of laundry. "Did you finally fix the leaky sink like I asked?" she said, her tone as flat as the worn-out linoleum beneath my feet. "No," I replied softly, stepping forward. "Mom, look." I held out the diploma, the bold, embossed letters catching the afternoon light. "First place, national level." My father, George, set his coffee mug down with a loud thud. His eyes narrowed on the paper, and for a second, just one brief second, I thought he might smile. But then he stood up, reached for the diploma, and tore it straight down the middle. The sound of paper ripping was deafening. "You think this makes you better than us," he said, each word sharp and deliberate. "Maybe if you spent less time showing off and more time doing something useful around here, we wouldn't live in this pigsty." Katie snorted. My sister, 2 years older and seemingly allergic to responsibility, sat perched on the counter scrolling her phone. "Maybe next time aim for second place," she said. "At least then you wouldn't be so full of yourself." The pieces fluttered to the ground, landing like snowflakes, each one a reminder that my victory meant nothing to them. Nothing. I don't remember setting the diploma down on the table. I don't remember picking up the mop. But there I was minutes later, cleaning the floor with hands that had just held proof of something remarkable. Tears blurred my vision, but I kept scrubbing. Maybe it was stubbornness, maybe it was shame. I just didn't want them to see me cry. I had imagined this kitchen as the place I'd share good news, the place where we'd celebrate. Instead, it had become a place of quiet humiliation. The kind of humiliation that doesn't shout, it seeps into your bones. And in that moment, I made myself a promise. One day, they'll see me, not as a maid, not as their scapegoat, but for who I really am. I didn't tell anyone what happened that weekend, not my professor, not my roommates, not even my best friend Jenna. What was I supposed to say? That my parents shredded my proudest achievement and told me to clean the kitchen. That my sister laughed while I knelt on the floor like some unpaid maid. No, some things are too humiliating to say out loud, especially when you still don't understand them yourself. I arrived back at my dorm Sunday night, the sound of students laughing in the hallway, a sharp contrast to the ache in my chest. The door clicked shut behind me, sealing me in that tiny, windowless room that had somehow become the only place I felt safe. I dropped my backpack on the floor and sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the blank wall above my desk. It was still there, the photocopy of my Math Olympiad diploma I had printed weeks ago for backup. The real one was gone now, its remnants probably stuffed in a trash bag next to leftover takeout and bills no one wanted to pay. I stood up slowly, peeled the photocopy off the wall, and ran my thumb across the faded ink. A part of me wanted to rip it down, too. Pretend none of it mattered. But I didn't. I reached into my drawer for a new piece of tape and smoothed it back into place. Crooked, imperfect, but still standing. That night I didn't sleep much. My mind kept circling the same questions. Why did they hate it when I succeeded? Why did they act like I was some burden instead of someone to be proud of? Every answer led to more confusion, so I did the only thing that ever made sense. I opened my laptop and started writing. Not a letter, not a diary entry, a paper on probability theory. 40% of my grade depended on it, and if I was going to be invisible at home, I could at least be undeniable here. I lost myself in equations, formulas, and data sets, the cold precision of math a welcome relief from the messy tangle of feelings I couldn't sort through. Numbers didn't lie. They didn't get jealous. They didn't tear you down because your success made them uncomfortable. Hours passed like minutes, and when the first light of dawn peeked through my window, I hit save. 12 pages, every line a quiet rebellion. That afternoon, I walked into Professor Keaton's office, paper in hand. He glanced up from his desk, his eyes lighting up. "Sarah, early as always." I smiled faintly and handed over the paper. I added some extra data modeling based on our last lecture." He flipped through it, eyebrows lifting as he scanned the pages. "You're making connections that most graduate students struggle to grasp," he said. "This is brilliant work." My chest tightened, not with pride, but with something sharper, grief maybe. Because in that moment I realized something painful. A stranger believed in me more than my own family ever had. "Thank you," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He looked at me closely, his brow furrowing. "You doing okay?" I nodded too quickly. "Just final stress." It wasn't a lie. It just wasn't the whole truth. As I walked back across campus, my phone buzzed. A message from Mom. "Don't forget to Venmo me for the grocery bill, and pick up paper towels when you come home next weekend." No mention of the diploma, no apology, just another errand. I deleted the message without replying. That night I stared at the photocopy on my wall. Still crooked, still imperfect. But maybe that's who I was, too. Not the daughter they wanted, but the woman I was becoming. Quietly strong. Unseen for now, but not for long. Graduation day was supposed to feel like the end of one chapter and the sparkling start of another. I had imagined this moment so many times. The proud smiles, the camera flashes, the sound of my name being called while my family stood cheering in the crowd. I thought that maybe, just maybe, everything I'd endured would finally feel worth it. Instead, I stood alone outside the Frank Irwin Center, adjusting the cap that kept slipping off my head and wishing, desperately, that I could disappear. All around me, laughter echoed. Students wrapped in their families' arms, flowers and balloons filling the air with color. Some carried signs with inside jokes. Others cried tears of joy, clinging to their parents like they never wanted to let go. And then there was me, one hand gripping my diploma, the other buried in the pocket of my gown, clutching the small piece of paper I had written my speech on. Just in case someone asked what this moment meant to me. No one did. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Katie. "Don't forget to send Mom your bank info for the mortgage this month." No congrats. No proud of you. Just another demand, like always. I didn't reply. I didn't even open it. I slipped the phone back in my pocket and took a breath, trying to hold myself together. I watched as my friend Jasmine posed with her parents, their arms wrapped around her tightly, her father crying openly while her mother beamed. Jasmine caught my eye and waved, her face lighting up. "Sarah, where's your family?" The question cut through me like glass. "They couldn't make it," I said, forcing a smile that felt foreign on my face. "Busy weekend." She gave me a sympathetic look, stepping forward and squeezing my hand. "I'm sorry, you deserve a whole parade, not just a ceremony." I nodded, unsure how to respond. Part of me wanted to tell her everything, to lay bare the truth about what my family really thought of me, but the words stuck in my throat. What could she say? What could anyone? After the ceremony, while my classmates spilled out into the bright May sunlight, I wandered off campus alone. The cap and gown felt heavy, suffocating almost, like a costume I didn't belong in. The city buzzed with celebration, but none of it touched me. Back in my tiny apartment, I peeled off the gown and hung it on the back of my door. I stood in front of the mirror, diploma in hand, and for a second I just stared. No tears, no smile, just the strange emptiness that comes from realizing a dream, but with no one to share it. I placed the diploma next to the photocopy on my wall, two testaments to my resilience. And yet in that moment they felt more like reminders of everything I didn't have. No congratulations, no dinner out, no proud parents posting my achievements online, just silence. I sat on the floor, knees pulled to my chest, and let the silence wrap around me like a blanket. It was comforting in a way. Familiar. Loneliness had been my shadow for so long that I wasn't even sure I could recognize what life felt like without it. Hours passed. The sun dipped low, casting golden light through the window, but I didn't move. My eyes burned, but I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't hurt, but because I was tired of giving my family the satisfaction of knowing they still had the power to break me. Instead, I whispered to the empty room, "One day I won't need them to see me, because I'll see myself." And somehow, that small promise, it felt like the beginning of something. Sometimes, the right door opens exactly when you're about to give up knocking. 2 weeks after graduation, I stood outside a gleaming glass building in downtown Austin, heart thudding hard enough to echo in my ears. The fintech startup's logo, Novametrics, was etched into the steel entrance, bold and sleek. I was here on the recommendation of Professor Keaton, who had called me out of the blue and said, "Sarah, there's someone I want you to meet. She's looking for talent," and I told her your name before she even finished the sentence. I almost didn't go. The memory of graduation was still raw. I'd convinced myself that no one cared, that maybe I wasn't meant to be seen. But something about the way Professor Keaton spoke, like he believed in me, made me pull my one good blazer from the back of the closet, smooth my hair, and show up. And thank God I did. I barely had time to take in the sleek lobby before a woman with sharp eyes and a kind smile approached me. She extended her hand. "Sarah, I'm Myra Chen, CEO of Novametrics. Come with me." I followed her up 2 flights of stairs into a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city that almost made me forget how nervous I was. Myra didn't waste time. "Keaton sent over your portfolio. Brilliant work. Tell me something, why fintech?" I blinked. "Because numbers don't lie," I said before I could think. "They tell stories, clean, logical ones, and because I think data should be used to empower people, not just profit from them." She leaned back, smiling. "Good answer." We talked for over an hour, diving deep into models, ethics, future tech. I didn't even realize I was rambling until she stood and said, "Sarah, if you want it, the job's yours." My heart stopped. "You mean right now?" she laughed. "Right now. Keaton doesn't hand out praise lightly. And talent like yours, I won't risk losing you." Walking out of that building, job offer in hand, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, hope. Real, tangible hope. My starting role wasn't glamorous. Junior data analyst, but I didn't care. The first day at Novametrics, I walked through those glass doors and felt like I had stepped into a different world. A place where people looked me in the eye, where I was asked for my opinion, where my work didn't just sit in a drawer, it went to clients, shaped decisions, changed outcomes. And then there was Myra. She wasn't just a boss. She was a force. Sharp, visionary, and somehow always 2 steps ahead. She had this way of challenging you without making you feel small. During my second week, she stopped by my desk and asked, "Do you want to grow here?" I nodded, trying not to sound too eager. "Absolutely." "Good. Come to my office after lunch. I've got a project and I think you're ready." That project changed everything. Myra handed me a mess of raw data and said, "Find the signal in the noise. Show me something no one else has seen." I stayed up nights running models, testing patterns, cross-referencing variables no one had considered. I didn't do it for praise. I did it because, for the first time, someone believed I could. When I presented my findings, Myra sat silently through my entire pitch. Then she stood, clapped once, and said, "You're not a junior anymore." Promotion. Week 4. It was the first time I heard my name spoken with respect in someone's voice. The first time my work wasn't dismissed, ignored, or claimed by someone else. For once, I wasn't the help. I wasn't the errand runner or the forgotten daughter. I was Sarah, data analyst, team lead, problem solver. Validation felt like air after years of suffocating. That evening, I walked home through the warm summer streets, my heels clicking on the pavement, and something inside me shifted. For the first time in my life, I wasn't wondering if I was enough. I knew I was. And yet, when I got home, my phone buzzed with a message from Mom. "Mortgage due Friday. Don't forget the grocery list." I didn't respond, not right away. I stood at my window, looking out over the skyline, and whispered to myself, "This isn't where your story ends, it's where it begins." Coming home from work felt like entering a different world. At Novametrics, I was Sarah Whitmore, the data whisperer, the rising star, the woman who turned chaos into clarity. At home, I was just Sarah, the girl with the car keys, the grocery bags, and the bank account my family treated like their own. The first time I handed over part of my paycheck, I did it willingly. I had just finished my first full month at Nova and was riding high from another successful project. Myra had praised my initiative in front of the whole team. I should have gone out to celebrate. Instead, I stopped at the grocery store and spent over $200 on food for the week. Katie insisted on name brands, organic this, imported that, and Mom had texted me a long list of essentials. When I got home, arms full of bags, Mom barely glanced up from the TV. "Put the perishables in first," she said, without looking away from the screen. Dad was at the table, sorting through unpaid bills like always, his forehead furrowed in that familiar frown. You'll want to get the mortgage check in early this month, he muttered. Bank's been giving us trouble. I froze, fingers tightening around a bag of apples. Didn't I already cover last month's? Yeah, and now it's this month, he said, not even blinking. You've got a good job now, Sarah. Time to pull your weight. Pull my weight. I wanted to scream that I had been carrying this family's weight for years, but instead I nodded and set the apples on the counter. That night I Venmo'd Dad the money. No thank you, no acknowledgement, just the assumption that I would keep doing it. Week after week, my paycheck became a lifeline, not for me but for them. Mortgage, groceries, utility bills. Katie's takeout habit, her new subscription boxes. I watched as she ordered food every night, lounging on the couch in pajamas while I came home late from work, exhausted. Can't you cook for once? I asked one night, eyeing the pile of boxes from yet another sushi order. Katie rolled her eyes. You like cooking, it relaxes you. No, it didn't, not anymore. Even dinners turned into battlegrounds. Dad would complain about the spices, Mom about the portions. Katie would scroll through her phone and make passive-aggressive comments about how some people think money grows on trees. I wanted to shout, "It doesn't, but you seem to think I do." I tried to focus on work, on Myra, on the growing respect I was earning from my team. But the drain at home was constant, like a faucet that never stopped leaking, dripping away my energy and peace. One night after an especially brutal workday, I walked in to find Katie watching TV, feet up on the table, drinking the last of my almond milk straight from the carton. You couldn't leave me one glass, I asked. She shrugged. You can buy more, you're the one with a job. Something inside me snapped. You're 26, Katie. When are you going to get a job? Her eyes narrowed. Why, so I can fund your ego trip, please. You love playing the martyr. Mom stormed in from the other room. Don't talk to your sister that way. I turned to her, my voice shaking. I'm tired, Mom. I work 10-hour days and come home to this. Dad didn't even look up from his newspaper. This house isn't a hotel, Sarah. If you don't like it, leave. That's when I realized something cruel and undeniable. They didn't want me to succeed. They wanted me to serve. The more I gave, the more they took, and the less they respected me. I went to bed that night staring at the ceiling, the echo of their voices rattling in my head. Pull your weight. You love playing the martyr. If you don't like it, leave. And for the first time, I asked myself, what if I did? It started with the little things, missed alarms, unread emails, forgetting to eat. I told myself it was just exhaustion, a bad week. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was unraveling. At Nova Metrics, the cracks were harder to hide. My work, the one place I used to shine, began slipping through my fingers. Data sets I could once decipher in minutes suddenly felt like puzzles with missing pieces. My mind, usually sharp and focused, was foggy, distracted by a growing storm I couldn't escape. Sarah, are you all right? Myra asked one afternoon, her eyes kind but wary. I nodded too quickly. Just didn't sleep well, I'm fine. But I wasn't, not even close. That night, Katie texted me a receipt for groceries she had ordered. $147 of snacks, soda, and takeout. You owe me. Mom said you forgot to pick up food again. The casual entitlement of her words hit like a slap. I stared at the message, heart pounding. It was all too much. Her, the mortgage, the endless shouting matches at dinner, the way Dad muttered about me being too big for my britches every time I mentioned work. That night I barely slept. Next morning I skipped breakfast, skipped coffee, skipped everything but the gnawing anxiety in my stomach. There was a presentation, my biggest yet. Myra had entrusted me with pitching our latest project to a major client. It was a chance to prove myself, a chance to rise. But as I stood before the glass-walled conference room, staring at my own reflection in the door, panic rose like a wave. My hands trembled, my breath caught in my throat. I walked in, papers in hand, and everything blurred. I don't remember much about the first 5 minutes, just the sound of my own voice, brittle and too fast, echoing through the room as I clicked through the slides. My data looked wrong. I couldn't remember why. Numbers danced on the screen, unfamiliar and mocking. Sarah, Myra's voice cut through the fog. Are you okay? I froze, silence stretched. My chest tightened, the room spinning around me. And then, without warning, I burst into tears. Not a quiet tear, not the dignified kind you can wipe away and ignore. Full, choking sobs that left everyone staring. I'm sorry, I gasped. I need a moment. I stumbled out of the room, clutching the edge of the hallway wall like a lifeline. I don't know how long I stood there just trying to breathe. Myra found me minutes later, her expression unreadable. Let's talk, she said gently. In her office, I sat like a child in trouble, twisting my fingers in my lap. She closed the door, sat across from me, and said the words I had feared. "I'm letting you go, Sarah." The room seemed to collapse around me. "I know you've been struggling," Myra continued. "But this wasn't just a bad day. It's been building. You need time, space. Whatever's happening, you can't carry it all alone." I wanted to argue, to plead, but nothing came. I nodded numbly, shame burning hot in my throat. "I believe in you," she added. "But you need help. Take care of yourself." I walked out of that office carrying a small box of belongings, my notebook, a framed photo from the office holiday party, and the pieces of my self-worth shattered and quiet. Outside, the sky had darkened. Rain poured down in sheets, drenching me within seconds. I didn't care. I stood at the bus stop, clutching the termination letter in one hand, the rain soaking it until the ink bled. All I could think was, how did I get here? 1 month ago, I had everything I thought I wanted. A job, a future, a spark of hope. Now I had nothing but a soggy box and a growing storm inside. And no one, not Mom, not Dad, not Katie, would care. I was tired of fighting for people who couldn't even see me drown. I didn't go home that night. The thought of walking through that door, of facing Katie's smug glances or Dad's questions about the mortgage, it made my stomach twist. I couldn't do it. Not with my dignity bleeding out from that conference room floor. So I wandered. Downtown Austin blurred around me in the rain, headlights and neon signs streaking across puddles. My box of belongings grew heavier with every block, the weight digging into my arms like a punishment I couldn't set down. By midnight, I was sitting on a bench at a closed bus stop, soaked through, shaking, and unsure what to do. My phone buzzed twice, then again. I didn't check it. I knew what it was. Mom probably wanted to know why the fridge was still empty. Katie might be asking for money again. Or worse, no one would notice I hadn't come home. That hurt most. I wanted someone to care, just one person. But in that moment, I didn't know who to call until a name surfaced, soft and hesitant. Dr. Leela Mason, my therapist from college. I hadn't seen her in almost a year, not since the last free session the university covered. Back then, she had told me, "When you're ready to live for you, not just for them, come back." I never did. Not until now. I didn't expect her to answer. It was past midnight, but I called anyway, each ring a desperate wish. On the fourth, her voice came through, calm and familiar. "Sarah!" That single word broke me. An hour later, I sat in the corner booth of a 24-hour diner, a towel wrapped around my shoulders, sipping tea Dr. Mason had ordered before I even arrived. She sat across from me, notebook unopened, her eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in a long time, gentleness. We didn't talk much at first. I couldn't. My throat felt raw, my thoughts like static. But slowly, between sips of tea and the rhythmic hum of the diner lights, the words came. "I lost my job," I whispered. Dr. Mason nodded. "I'm sorry, tell me what happened." I did, haltingly, clumsily, the breakdown, the panic, the weight of carrying everything and everyone. The silence at home, the endless demands, the diploma ripped and forgotten, the mortgage payments, the shouting, the shame. She listened. Not with pity, but with that rare, quiet respect that makes you feel seen, not as a problem to solve, but as a person trying to survive. "I feel empty," I said. "Like I gave everything, and there's nothing left." She reached across the table, placing her hand gently over mine. "Sarah, you've been surviving on scraps of validation, but you've never once asked yourself what you want, what you need." I blinked. "What I want doesn't matter, they need me." "No," she said, firm but kind. "They want to use you, that's not the same." The truth hit hard. "You don't owe them your soul, Sarah." We talked for hours until dawn touched the diner windows and I realized I hadn't looked at my phone once. I didn't want to, I didn't need to. For the first time in years, someone was pouring into me instead of draining me. Over the next few weeks, Dr. Mason became more than a therapist. She became a lifeline. We met twice a week, sometimes in her office, sometimes over coffee. She helped me sift through the rubble. My lost job, my crumbling self-worth, the years of emotional debts I had been paying without consent. She challenged me, too. "What if you didn't go home?" she asked one day. I froze. "Where would I go?" "Anywhere that's yours." It sounded impossible, radical, but something inside me stirred. One afternoon, while scrolling apartment listings more out of fantasy than intention, I found it. A small, sunlit one-bedroom in a quiet part of town. Cheap enough to manage, far enough from my family to breathe. I hesitated, finger hovering over the contact button. Dr. Mason's voice echoed in my head. "What if your piece is worth more than their approval?" That night, I sent the email. Within days, the apartment was mine. No fanfare, no applause, just a key in my hand and the faintest flicker of something new: autonomy. I didn't tell my family, not yet. I wanted to hold this for myself, even if just for a moment. My own space, my own air. I bought a second-hand couch, a small desk, and one plant, sunlight-loving, low-maintenance like me. I cooked quiet meals. I slept without yelling in the next room. I woke up to silence, and for the first time it didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like peace. And in that peace, something wild and brave took root. I began to dream not of escape, but of building. An idea born in the middle of one of our sessions began to grow. Dr. Mason had said, "You have a gift for data. What if you used it for you?" What if, indeed? I didn't know exactly how. But I knew one thing: I would never again build someone else's empire while burning myself to the ground. Starting a business sounds glamorous. Late-night brainstorming, big dreams, coffee-fueled breakthroughs. In reality, it's grit. Sleepless nights, rejected pitches, doubt clawing at your confidence every step of the way. Still, I had something I hadn't had before: control. In my tiny new apartment, sunlight pouring in through sheer curtains I finally chose for myself, I opened my laptop and took the first step. Whitmore Analytics, I typed, the name both terrifying and thrilling. My name, my vision, no one else's. At first, it was just me and a spreadsheet of ideas, but momentum builds quietly when you're fueled by purpose. I leveraged every skill I'd sharpened at Nova Metrics. I reached out to local businesses, offering data services, customer analytics, forecasting, optimization, nothing flashy, just solid, honest work. To my surprise, people said yes. My first client was a small coffee chain, then a tech repair shop. Word spread. By month 2, I had 3 steady contracts and was finally earning money that didn't feel tainted by obligation. Dr. Mason encouraged me at every turn. "You're building something real, Sarah. Don't let fear steal this from you." I nodded, absorbing her words like sunlight. But fear had many faces, and I hadn't yet seen the one coming next. It started with a text from Mom. "Can you come by this weekend? We need to talk." Part of me wanted to ignore it, but a larger part, the one still wired for guilt, responded, "Okay." I arrived Sunday afternoon, arms full of groceries I couldn't quite afford but brought anyway. Old habits die hard. The moment I stepped inside, I knew something was off. Katie sat at the table, scrolling her phone, a smug smile playing on her lips. Mom and Dad stood nearby, arms crossed. No greetings, no smiles, just tension, thick and suffocating. Dad broke the silence. "We heard you started some kind of consulting thing." I blinked. "I did, Whitmore Analytics," Katie laughed. "Sounds fake." I felt the sting but kept my voice steady. "It's real and it's growing." Mom stepped forward, arms crossed. "Then you can afford to pay more. The mortgage, utilities, food. We've been carrying you long enough." "Carrying me?" I nearly laughed. "I've been paying your bills for months." Dad slammed his hand on the table. "And now you'll pay more. We gave you everything. It's time you give back." I realized then they didn't see my business as mine. They saw it as a resource, another vein to drain. Katie leaned in, voice syrupy and false. "We're family, Sarah. Families support each other. What's yours is ours, right?" I stood frozen, heart pounding. They didn't want my success. They wanted my submission. That night I didn't sleep. By morning, things escalated. Katie posted on social media, a vague but cutting message. "Some people pretend to be successful entrepreneurs. Weird, right? Fake business family first." The message was clear. She wanted to discredit me. At first, I ignored it. But within days, clients began to ask questions. "Is everything okay?" one asked cautiously. "Saw something online, didn't know if it was about you." My stomach twisted. My family was poisoning what I was building. And for what? Control, money. The final blow came in the form of a message from Mom. "If you stop paying the mortgage, we'll have to tell people the truth about your little business. Your choice." It wasn't just manipulation. It was a threat. I stared at the screen, rage and heartbreak swirling. After everything, every dollar, every late night, every piece of myself I'd given, they still saw me as a tool. Never a daughter, never a person. I took a deep breath and typed back, "Do what you need to, I'm done." Then I blocked their numbers, not just from my phone, but from my life. For the first time, I chose myself. And in that silence, I felt something powerful take root, not fear, not doubt. Freedom. I used to think peace would feel like fireworks, some grand moment of clarity where the world just stops and finally makes sense. Turns out, peace is quiet, subtle. It sneaks in, like sunlight through the blinds on a morning you don't have to rush anywhere. After blocking their numbers, I waited for the guilt. I expected it to hit me like a wave. The what-ifs, the late-night doubts, the temptation to call and say, I didn't mean it. But the call never came. Not from me, not from them. And slowly, the silence started to feel like freedom. I focused on Whitmore analytics, pouring my time and energy into the business. Without constant emotional sabotage, I had bandwidth, real mental space to think clearly, to create, to breathe. It wasn't glamorous. My office was a corner of my living room, wedged between a second-hand desk and a growing jungle of houseplants. But it was mine, every inch of it. Clients kept coming, local businesses first, then some from out of state, thanks to referrals and a few glowing testimonials. I built dashboards, analyzed customer trends, and helped small companies make sense of their data. Nothing flashy, just honest, effective work. And people noticed. Within 2 months, I needed help. That's when Maya entered my life. She was a junior at the University of Texas, bright-eyed, brilliant, and eager to learn. She'd found my website through a job board and sent me a cover letter so genuine, I couldn't ignore it. Our first meeting was at a coffee shop near campus. She showed up with a notebook full of ideas and a heart full of hope. I just want to learn from someone who built something real, she said. Her words stunned me. For so long, I'd been made to feel like nothing I did mattered. Now here was someone who saw me as a mentor, a role model. I hired her on the spot. Working with Maya reignited something in me, a sense of purpose I hadn't felt since my early days at Nova Metrics. We spent hours sketching ideas on whiteboards, building client models, even creating our own analytics tools. She was sharp, fast, and full of questions. But the best part? I didn't feel drained. I didn't feel used. I felt alive. Maya didn't expect me to carry her burdens. She didn't demand money or time I didn't have. She just wanted to grow, and she respected that I did too. One evening, after a long day of meetings, I looked around my apartment, the soft light, the tidy desk, the small bouquet of flowers I'd bought myself, and felt something unfamiliar. Contentment. No one was yelling. No one was asking for anything. There was no chaos, no manipulation, just me, a glass of wine, and a sense of quiet satisfaction. It was enough. Until, of course, curiosity crept in. I hadn't spoken to my family in weeks. Not a single message. Not even a petty social media post from Katie. The silence should have been a relief, and in many ways it was. But part of me wondered, did they miss me? Did they notice I was gone? So like any sane person, I opened Instagram. Katie's page was still public. The first post I saw hit like a punch. Her lounging on the couch with a glass of wine, captioned, "Self-care is having your sister pay your bills so you can focus on finding yourself." Grateful boss babe energy, thousands of likes. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, the gall, the utter shamelessness. She had used me, mocked me, publicly bragged about it. And now, when I was finally free, she was still riding the wave of my sacrifices. I almost cried, almost. But instead, I laughed. A sharp, bitter laugh that turned into something else, clarity. They hadn't changed. They weren't reflecting. They weren't missing me. They were just adjusting to life without me and doing just fine. And somehow that made me feel lighter. Because I realized I didn't have to carry them. Not now, not ever again. That weekend, I packed a picnic and drove to Lady Bird Lake, something I hadn't done in years. I sat under a tree watching the water glisten and let myself feel. Not guilt, not anger, just possibility. Later that evening, an ad popped up in my email, an all-inclusive vacation package to Chelum. Beautiful beaches, luxury suites, sunlight, peace. And a thought occurred to me. What if I invited them, not out of obligation, not to buy their love, but as a test, a chance? Maybe, just maybe, something had shifted. I clicked book. 4 tickets, fully paid. For once, I had the power not to hurt them, but to choose. This time, I wasn't chasing their love. I was offering a moment to see who they really were. And if they chose betrayal again, well, I was no longer the girl with the mop. Some part of me still believed they could change. I don't know why. Maybe it was the echo of old hope. Or maybe just the deep human need to be seen by the people who made you. Whatever it was, it pushed me to book those tickets. To believe that maybe, if I gave them one beautiful thing, they'd meet me halfway. The vacation package was everything I never had growing up. Oceanfront villas, daily spa treatments, turquoise water so clear it didn't seem real. Chelum wasn't just a destination. It was a symbol. A chance to rewrite our story, to step outside the roles we'd all been trapped in for so long. I crafted the message carefully. Neutral, warm, hopeful. I've booked a trip for us to Chalum, all expenses covered. It's a chance to relax, reset, and maybe heal. I hope you'll come. I leave August 3rd. I waited. The first response came from Mom. Wow, that's unexpected. We'll have to check our schedules. Katie's reply was next. Free vacation. I'm in. Better be oceanfront. Dad didn't respond at all. Still, they accepted. They even sounded excited. For a brief, surreal moment, I allowed myself to imagine the impossible. Walking along the beach, the tension lifted, laughter instead of silence. Maybe they'd say thank you. Maybe they'd see me, really see me for the first time. I had our travel packets couriered over along with their flight confirmations and itinerary. Everything was perfect. Flights left on August 3rd. We'd all arrive together. The day before departure, I was packing my bag. Sunscreen, sundresses, the first swimsuit I'd bought in years when my phone buzzed. A text from Katie, just 3 sentences. We went without you, burned your ticket, don't call. My brain couldn't process it. I reread it 3 times, fingers trembling. No, this couldn't be real. I called straight to voicemail. I texted, what are you talking about? No response. I called Mom, voicemail, Dad, voicemail. Panic twisted into nausea. My hands shook so badly I could barely unlock my laptop. I logged into the airline portal, heart racing. Their seats checked in, my seat canceled. They had taken the trip without me. They had burned my ticket, not metaphorically, literally. Katie attached a photo and a follow-up text an hour later. A picture of my printed ticket, edges blackened, ash curling at the corners. Caption, hope the couch at home is comfy, LOL. I couldn't breathe. Not because they left me behind, but because I had invited them. I had offered a gift, an olive branch, and they torched it, just like the diploma, just like every kind word, every effort I'd ever made. They didn't want peace. They wanted to punish me for leaving, for choosing myself, for building a life without them. Tears spilled over, hot and relentless. I sat on the edge of my bed, suitcase open, dreams folded inside, and realized I was never the daughter they wanted. Because I was strong. Because I left, because I dared to live without them. Hours passed. The sun set. I stared at my phone, waiting for some sign, remorse, regret. None came, but something else did. Resolve. I wiped my face, stood up, and opened my contact list. Anthony, a friend from college. Now a TSA officer at the Austin airport. We hadn't talked in months, but I remembered his offer. If you ever need a favor, call me. I called. Anthony, I said, voice steely. I need those tickets flagged. Security review, all 3. He didn't ask questions, just said, consider it done. 3 days later, I got the call. Katie, panicked, breathless. What did you do? We're stuck at customs. They won't let us through. Dad's losing it. Mom's crying. Fix this, now. I let the silence stretch. Then I said, do you like the vacation? Silence. Then a crack, a sob. Please, we're sorry. Just let us out. I paused, letting the weight of their words settle. I'll help, I said slowly, but on my terms. And for the first time, I felt it not victory, power. The kind you earn when you stop begging for scraps and start feeding yourself. I expected their apologies to be loud, dramatic, begging even. Instead, they came in whispers, text messages dripping with guilt and desperation. We didn't mean it. We thought you'd laugh. Please don't ruin this for us. They weren't sorry for the act. They were sorry they lost control. I left them stranded in customs for 6 hours. Long enough for the airlines to cancel their resort pickup. Long enough for them to feel a sliver of the powerlessness they had forced me to swallow for years. And when I finally called Anthony to have the flags removed, I did it not out of kindness, but closure. I wanted to be done. They returned home a week later, sunburned and silent. No souvenirs, no family selfies. Just 3 people who had finally realized I wasn't the girl they could guilt into obedience anymore. Still, they tried. First, Mom, let's talk. We didn't know you'd take it so hard. Then Dad, this family's broken because you left. Come back. And Katie, you win, okay? Are you happy now? But it wasn't about winning. It never was. I didn't respond. Not for days. Not until I was sure. Not until the decision no longer came from rage or revenge, but peace. When I was ready, I sat at my desk, sunlight streaming in, my plant blooming in the corner, and typed a message. One message. Final. I'm done paying for a seat at a table that was never meant for me. I loved you. I begged for your love in return. I fought for this family until I broke, but I'm not broken anymore. I choose myself. Please respect that. Goodbye. I hit send. Then I blocked them, this time not out of anger but self-respect. And in that silence, something remarkable happened. I thrived. Whitmore Analytics expanded. Maya came on full-time. We hired 2 more people, bright, driven, compassionate. I bought better equipment, moved into a real office space downtown. Clients kept coming, not because I begged, but because I delivered. One afternoon, Myra, yes, that Myra, showed up at my office. "I've been hearing about you," she said, smiling. "Impressive work, ready to talk partnerships." Full circle. We had coffee, talked strategy, laughed like old colleagues. She didn't mention the past. She didn't have to. We both knew I had found my footing, and she respected it. That night, I walked through my apartment, wine glass in hand, and realized something profound. I didn't need their recognition, I had mine. I had built a life on my terms, from ashes and courage, from every broken piece they left behind. And I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I was free. People ask if I ever saw them again. The truth? No, I still think of them, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in moments when something reminds me of home. But I don't miss them. I miss who I wish they could be. And I've learned that sometimes the most radical act of love isn't staying, it's walking away. So here I am. Sarah Whitmore, daughter of no one, creator of everything, not a survivor, a force. Have you ever had to choose yourself over your family? Was it worth it? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if Sarah's journey moved you, inspired you, or gave you the courage to take your own next step, like, share, and subscribe, because your story matters. And sometimes, the happiest ending is finally starting the life you were meant to live.